Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. My name is Sung-Hoon Kim, and I'll be your host for this event. This is ICAO's SkyTalks for the A40. Over the next 2 weeks, we have 68 presentations for you, and we're coming to you live. For those who missed previous SkyTalks, please make sure to go to ICAO site on YouTube, and you can have a look at all the different presentations we've had thus far. Today's topic is about border control and how we process aircraft's crew, cabin, as well as baggage and cargo. To tell you more about the Facilitation Program, we have Dr. Narjess Abdennebi, Chief for Facilitation Section. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Narjess Abdennebi. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. And my presentation today will be really to give you a general overview about what are the facilitation programs, which are managed by the facilitation section. And my colleagues in the coming days will come here to give you perhaps more details about what is the differences in each program. Sorry, I missed something very important. So, facilitation, what it is exactly? We have different actors in the facilitation area. And that is one of the main challenges for facilitation. There is a need for coordination between the different actors. Should it be the travel document issuers, the airlines, the immigration, customs, law enforcement, health, etc. So the objective, of course, is to facilitate and expedite the clearance of passengers, but in the meantime, maintain security. That's very important. So we have 3 facilitation programs. First, the Annex 9, which is the regulatory framework for facilitation. So it is establishing the standards and the recommended practices for all what is related to facilitation. Then we have the ICAO Traveller Identification Programme strategy. It is 5 elements. It has been implemented in 2013. These 5 elements are evidence of identity, machine-readable travel document, document issuance and control, inspection systems and tools, and interoperable applications. The third program is the ICAO Public Key Directory. And the ICAO Public Key Directory is part of the inspection system and tools of the ICAO TRIP strategy. But in the meantime, you have also recommended practices in Annex 9 related to the ICAO Public Key Directory. That's why, in fact, these 3 programs in facilitation are very interrelated. So what are the foundations? If we take the Annex 9 facilitation, the amendments are proposed, recommended by the facilitation panel. Under the facilitation panel, you have 2 working groups, one working on the guidance and the other one working on a very hot topic, which is passenger name record, and it is the passenger name record task force. So then, the recommendations of the panel are going to the Air Transport Committee, and if there is an amendment to adopt, it has to go to the Council. The other ICAO TRIP strategy, the other program, it is managed by the Technical Advisory Group on TRIP. And under this Technical Advisory Group, you have 2 working groups, one working on technology and the other one, ICBWG, working on implementation capacity building. Finally, if we go to the ICAO PKD, the ICAO PKD is managed by the PKD board, composed of 15 member states, and under the PKD board, there is the executive body. And finally, the mandate for each triennium is also coming from the resolution. So until now, it is A3920, and of course, at the end of the assembly, this assembly resolution should be superseded by a new one, which will be A40 XX. So, as I said, Annex 9 is setting the regulatory framework, and it's a 7th anniversary for this Annex 9, which has been established in 1949. So basically, very close to the 75th anniversary of ICAO. 9 chapters under the Annex 9 facilitation, and each of them is related to dedicated part, which could be entry and departure of persons, but also entry and departure of cargo, etc., etc. We have had several amendments since 1949. You can imagine that. There are, of course, the latest one. The 2 latest ones, I would say, it is the standards related to the obligation for state to report to Interpol into the stolen and lost travel document database the passports that are lost or stolen. So this was in 2016, and then in 2018, it is the API which became a standard. When you have SARPs into an annex, so you know that it is mandatory for states to implement SARPs, standards at least. And if a state is not able to implement a standard, the state has to file a difference. This is an obligation, and it is linked to the Article 38 of the Chicago Convention. You have here the document 10055 that could help you and give you some guidance on that. And in general, we are encouraging the state to submit their differences on this system, on the electronic filing of differences IFOD system, and you have the link over there. Now, let's move to the second program of facilitation, Traveller Identification Programme, ICAO TRIP strategy. The regulatory framework for this program is set by Annex 9 and mainly by the Chapter 3 and the Chapter 9. So, in fact, the TRIP has been implemented based on ICAO leadership in MRTD matters since now more than 40 years. So why there is this leadership in MRTD, machine-readable travel documents, and of course the most common one is the passport, is that because all, I would say the majority of the international travelers, should it be by maritime or by road or by air, they have a passport. And the passports are under the leadership of ICAO because ICAO is defining the specifications for the standards. So the TRIP strategy is, of course, to establish really inspection and verification procedures, notably when you have to issue the travel documents and to ensure that your blank documents are in a secure place. And finally, the TRIP is supposed to facilitate inspection formalities for 99% of travelers. And this, of course, should be in a secure way. So, as I mentioned before, the experts of the TAG TRIP and the 2 subgroups are member states experts, but also experts from ISO and other organizations. So one subgroup, which is the NTWG, is really working toward the future about how we are going to evolve in terms of travel documents, technologies, etc. And the ICBWG is here to provide assistance to state in implementing all the TRIP strategy elements. So how we have evolved through the years, starting from non-MRP, non-machine readable passport, in fact, at the beginning. And I would like to remind you that all the non-MRPs should be out of circulation since now, the 24 November 2015. Then there were specifications for the machine-readable passport with the 2D barcode first, and then we have taken out the 2D barcode. And the most important part now of the MRP and, of course, of the biometric passport is the machine-readable zone that you can see here. And now, of course, we are in the e-passport or biometric passport. Sorry. So the changes in the specification of DOC 9303 are all made by the TAC TRIP and the ISO experts. And this is really the Bible, this document 9303, which is available for free on the ICAO site. It is the Bible for the document issuers in order to ensure that the passport that you are issuing is interoperable, meaning that when a citizen of your state is traveling with this passport, he will have no difficulty at any border. So international cooperation is really a key for successful TRIP implementation. We have signed several MOUs with different organizations, UN ODC, IOM, Interpol, etc. And we are, of course, planning to sign others with the OSCE, ISO, Frontex, and World Economic Forum. In parallel, we have the ICAO standards in Annex 9 are really important, and we are really participating actively in the UN agenda for counterterrorism. First, the strategic objective of ICAO security and facilitation is participating to the achievement of 7 of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, which are at the horizon of 2030. But besides, we are also partner in a new program that was launched on 7 May 2019, which is the UN Counter-Terrorist Travel Programme. So what was the rationale behind the creation of this program? First, First, the resolution 2178, 2014, which was related to the obligation of state to implement Advanced Passenger Information, API. The other one is the resolution 2396, which was in 2017, and it is related to the implementation and the obligation by states to implement passenger name record data. But in addition, in this resolution, the UN Security Council has urged ICAO to establish a standard for the collection, use, processing, and protection of PNR data. So some words about what is the UNCT travel program. As I said, it was launched recently on the 7th of May. And in fact, the objective is to assist states to detect foreign terrorist fighters by using API and PNR data. And we are partner under the leadership of the UN Office of Counterterrorism with CITED, UN ODC, and Interpol. So what kind of assistance are we providing, or are we able to provide? The legislative part, because the first step before implementing API or PNR systems, the state has to have a legal framework for that, should it be a decree or whatever, but it has to be clearly stated before starting any operational step. So then we can help also for the operational step. For the air carrier engagement, the air carrier engagement should be very clear in the legislative framework of the state. it has to indicate that any air carrier coming to the state has to follow the rules established by these states. And finally, technical, because there was a software, the UN Go Travel software, which was developed by Netherlands and given free of charge to the UN, and this can be used by the states. This software is free of charge for them. So, as I mentioned before, ICAO has been requested by the UN Security Council to develop standards for the PNR. What happened? We have established a task force in March, and we had really a very short timelines to come with proposals. And finally, we have now the report ready to be presented to the Air Transport Committee in October, and then the Air Transport Committee will decide if the recommendations that we are proposing will go to the Council or not. Now, I would like to talk about something very important, which is the passenger data single window facility for API and PNR. As I mentioned before, you have a lot of different agencies in the state which are interested in receiving this information, should it be API or PNR. And it has to be easy for the airline, notably API, because API is collected by the airline when you are checking. They are swiping your passport, and it is sent to this single agency, which has been determined by the state, and then this single agency will dispatch the information to all the interested stakeholders. And this, I take this opportunity to remind that API is now an Annex 9 standard applicable since 23 February 2018. So, until now, single window facility is a recommended practice, but in the Amendment 27, which is supposed to be effective on 21st October 2019, each state will have the obligation to implement a single window facility. So another challenge for facilitation is, of course, the increasing number of international passengers, 100,000 daily flights, and approximately 3.5 million international passengers per day, for whom there is a need to expedite the clearance. So, in general, we are counting 10 seconds for the officer to make the PAX clearance, but obviously, as the traffic will double in the next 20 years, there will be a substantial lack of resources to expedite the clearance for all PAX. That's why we have a recommended practice into Annex 9, meaning that when you are a holder of a biometric passport and the state has the opportunity to check your e-passport with the ICAO Public Key Directory, and then to make a biometric matching with the automated border control, as well as querying the Interpol SLTD database. This, of course, is expediting the traveler, and it is, of course, a better experience for the traveler. The ICAO training course, we have a training course on the control of the authenticity and the validity of the travel documents, but my colleague Jeannette will give you much more information about the contents of this course and how to benefit from this course for some officers in a state. And what is important, in fact, for this course is to have enough passport specimen. That's why we have sent a state letter to the states in order for them to provide passport specimen, because the trainees that are going to follow this course, they have to be trained and to see what is a passport that they are going to check at a certain point in time at the border. There is a dedicated ICAO Border Control Management Guide. It is available at the link that you can see at the bottom of the page. It is free of charge, of course, and it is really interesting to have the best practices to implement inspection systems and tools, as well as interoperable applications. So now, I don't want to be too technical. I would like to talk a little bit about the future. So in the biometric passport, you have a chip. Inside the chip, you have several data which are here. Among the mandatory biometric data, as per ICAO specifications and standards, it is only the photograph which is mandatory. So in this chip, you have the biographic data and the biometric, which is the face. And this is the way the e-passport is developed and is issued. So we have created a group, a working group, to work toward the future. Digital travel credential. So as I mentioned before, we have a growing number of passengers. We have limited physical infrastructure, notably with some airports that cannot be, that cannot have a surface much more bigger. We have enhanced security requirements, and we have aging systems. So that's why we have decided to explore how we can develop a model that could answer all these concerns and challenges. So as I mentioned also before, the passport data is used by a range of actors, okay? Immigration, transport ministers, air industry, border control, etc. So the high-level explanation, in fact, as I mentioned before, I showed you what is contained into the chip and what we call the SOD. It is the key to open all that. So I don't want to go further in the technical details, but what we wanted to have is to enable a passenger to have a replacement of the physical e-passport in order to facilitate his clearance. And you may imagine that we have planned 3 generations of DTC. The first one being planned for 2020, then the second one on the medium term, and the third one on the long term. But we have to ensure that all the generation of the DTC will be backward compatible. So the key parameters, of course, we have built, in fact, the concept on the security of an e-passport, and we wanted a solution that is providing the same security. So how we have developed that, there were several technologies which were explored. And finally, the group has decided to go with a hybrid model, meaning that the passenger will have the physical token, which is the passport, and the virtual one, which can be, for instance, on a smartphone. So if you look at the top of the slide, now it is this way that it is working. You have to show your passport at each gate, each step, etc. But with the DTC, okay, it is planned that you will go from the state A to the border of the state B with only this digital travel credential. So what could be the limitation? In fact, the access, for instance, to the ICAO Public Key Directory is for now, but it may change, is limited to states, meaning that the industry cannot use it. There are also other pertinent data such as the visa, which are not included in the DTC for the moment. So this also is a work for the experts of the NTWG of the TAC trip. So if I can summarize the takeaways, I remind you importance to comply with the ICAO standards or to file a difference. The states need to ensure that their travel documents are fully interoperable. The ICAO DTC model will ensure, notably, global interoperability and data quality. There is a necessity to move from bilateral programs to globally interoperable framework, such as the one which is offered by ICAO for the ICAO Public Key Directory. Need to have close collaboration between various agencies into states, efficient cooperation at the international level between all the organizations, and the challenges are ahead. What are they? First, there is to harmonize the intelligence and the data sharing to ensure data privacy, and this is really a main challenge because data privacy has not the same meaning from a state to another. And finally, in the coming days, you will have the opportunity to receive a special trip magazine, which is for the 75th anniversary and for the 70th anniversary of Annex 9. We hope that it will be in the next coming days. And don't forget to mark your agenda for the TRIP Symposium into 2020 from 31st March to 2 April. So thank you for your attention, and of course I am at your disposal to answer your questions if you have any.
If there are any questions, please come up to the mic. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Narjess Abdennebi.